Let's talk a little bit more about compliance. We talked very high level on this, but I like to go deeper into the compliances. So what are the different kind of compliances in software supply chain world people have to deal with? Well, I'd like you to elaborate a little bit more on what we do on the FIPS compliance, why FIPS compliance is important, and if customer using Cleanstart, what are the benefits for them for not going through an exhaustive process of FIPS compliances. Can we just talk about how these compliances are driving the software supply chain security world, right? How it's getting complicated, how it's getting adopted across the world for a lot of other countries who are talking about it.
Okay, so let's talk about the US because that's where we are first. And I would talk about federal governments and then we'll drill down to the other ones. So any organization dealing with federal governments directly, indirectly per se, would need to go through multiple standards, FIPS being one of them, reproducibility being one of them, and even now it requires STIG to be compliant, the hardening standard. Now, each and every one is a topic in itself, and we have seen, and that goes across development language-based images like Python, Go, Java, etc. And then you have something like an application-based or middleware-based images, let's say OpenSearch or let's say Apache, Tomcat, etc. So it depends on what organizations use typically, and that is typically from the US Fed part. For the non-Fed part, I think ISO and CIS are also getting common. I do see either people asking for STIG who are dealing with Fed, and I also see people asking for CIS benchmarking who are not dealing with Fed. And PCI DSS, for example, might have a requirement of CIS benchmarked images, etc., and hardened in a proper way. I'm not getting into the vulnerabilities. Of course, that falls under compliance, but that's a different topic in itself.
Well, I'd like you to elaborate a little bit more on what we do on the FIPS compliance, why FIPS compliance is important, and if customer using Cleanstart, what are the benefits for them for not going through an exhaustive process of FIPS compliances?
Well, FIPS is a mammoth task. If any organizations want to get itself FIPS compliant, it's a mammoth task, not only from building per se, proving per se, auditing per se. It's a huge task because the developers now need to understand encryption, cryptography, the standards being used, the algorithms being used, etc. And the worst part is it is a continuous process. I'll give you an example. Now, when you have to be a FIPS compliant image, every package that is installed on the image needs to be FIPS compliant. And typically it needs to be compiled with the FIPS mode as on. And that's why it is considered as a FIPS compliant image. And you have to understand which are the packages and the files, associated files, taking part in the cryptographic operations. Now that is a mammoth thing. Now I'll give you, to keep it simple and just to explain on a very high level, we give a CMVP certified FIPS module, which takes part in the cryptographic operations and which is used for anything that uses OpenSSL based encryption. And that includes something like a Go, something like a Python, etc. Because it's when you're talking about language-based images, like say Go, and I love give the Go examples, so widely used. Go, if you are having image, so we have a different dev image and a prod image. Now, when you're compiling something in the development image, the associated binary that comes out also needs to be FIPS compliant. So that's one of the things that organizations need to look at, and they need to look at traces, etc. So it's and so what we do is we make the journey faster because we are doing all of this and giving it to them, and now they just put their binary compiled, just put their code compile and can just start using it.
I personally spoke to dozens of companies in North America and particularly companies in the SaaS business, tech business, dealing with government there, and one of the biggest problem for them is to getting this fifth compliance done, right? The know-how part, getting it done by themselves or with a consultant, and going through the tedious process and still failing a lot of times. It's a lot of mental resource consuming for them. And the moment we talk about this, that we get this done, it removes 70-80% of the work that they have to do. They're super excited and thrilled about it. And probably one of the biggest driver why people want to talk to us, at least for those companies who are dealing in this problem of getting the FIPS compliance done. But let's talk about stick standards, right? So I think there are a lot of discussion around CIS benchmark. There are a lot of standards about stick compliances. So I'd like you to elaborate a little bit more on that.
So yes, so STIG is FIPS like is from an encryption point of view. STIG is more from a hardening point of view, and it's similar to CIS level benchmark marking. But there is a difference way both are done. So a single image cannot be STIGs as well as CIS; they will be different. And STIGs also gives a tool that you can verify your image that it is compliant or not, and that is across not only container images which we do, that can be done on VMs as well. It does any free tools like FSTP, etc., or FTP being there in some folder, some permission. There are plenty of those guidelines. So when we are giving you a STIG compliant image, in addition to that, we are giving you a report that it is STIG compliant. We are giving you a tool where you can scan yourself and say you are STIGs compliant. And we are giving a tool similar to what FIPS, that we are FIPS compliant. You can take it forward and can just show it to your auditor that this is it. You can run it live and can show it to your auditor. And these tools, like I told OpenSCAP that I told about STIGs compliance checker, it's given by the community and it's given by the security standard itself. So yeah.
That's amazing. And I know we do a lot of discussion about traceability. We do a lot of discussion about build compliances. We talk about complexity of dealing with provenances and integrity checks, and you spoke very highly about SBOM also. So I would like probably a lot of our audience is hearing all those who are first time, or probably people have gone through it, but they would like to know a little bit more. So let maybe cover a little bit about what the traceability is all about, what the provenance is all about, and how the complexity of dealing with this creates a lot of problem for organizations who has to get it done.
So I'll take one by one. We'll talk about it in topics. So first of all, let me talk about traceability. And I would use the word reproducibility as well with traceability, along with provenance. So I'll tell you what it is. Now, when you're talking about supply chain security, people need to understand that where you're taking the source code from. So if I'm compiling Nginx or a dependency package, I need to keep track of that particular software and I need to pull that software. So that's number one. I also need to keep track of all the fixes and the commits associated with it, so that when I give that report to any organization, they can rebuild it themselves if they want. So that's part of the reproducibility part of it, where I am not changing anything that has to be validated. Now, all of this build needs to be tracked during the live build process. And we do it in an isolated setup without any internet connectivity because we do not want any injection or a dependency attacks per se. Now, what are the build logs? So we keep a package level provenance for the same. When you are building an image, right, and you need to keep a track of how the image is getting built, and SLSA version 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4 definitely requires keeping those predicate, and you can go ahead and verify those things. So that is important and that is needed. So when you talk about traceability, it is covered, right? You can always go back and figure it out. What is it and where from it is taken? You want to see what happened during a package build. You want to see what happened during image build. and you want to verify that whatever file I've given or provenance that I've given you, it is attested. That means it is real. I'm not just making something up and giving it to you. All that can be done, yes.
But I hope we can probably have a lot more detailed session to go on this for those people who are keen to understand this. But I think software supply chain security is very complicated, right? And it's so much dependent on third-party vendors or the communities who are submitting it, and the middle of the man attack and a lot of things going on. It's not as simple as it sounds, right? For a lot of customer, and that's why they don't understand how to solve the problem. Uh, can we just talk about how these compliances are driving the software supply chain security world, right? How it's getting complicated, how it's getting adopted across the world for a lot of other countries who are talking about it. I see people have been looking at compliances as a check mark, right? They don't understand the underlying factor why compliance has been enforced and why the security has to be built in mindset and in design. So maybe like to talk about how compliances are getting complicated and they're driving cybersecurity standards for software supply chain world.
I think compliances have been driving cybersecurity for ages.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. So attacks happen, a compliance guideline comes in, and then you see cybersecurity also scaling up. So I do see wide scale adoption. So we just spoke about we are in the US, right? So in the US, you can see the federal standards, but federal standards are only applicable to people who are dealing with the federal government and are part of the transactions directly, indirectly. But what I am seeing is standards like ISO and PCI following in line with the FedRAMP standards very soon. We just spoke about STIG for federal and CIS for this thing. And one part that when we spoke about vulnerabilities in the vulnerability discussion is the mammothness of the task. Now, for example, if I have N-3 versions and I have these many images, all need to be compliant. All need to be compliant. So if a new vulnerability comes and I give you a new image, that needs to be compliant as well. So it is impossible for an enterprise to do it. I mean, I wouldn't say impossible, but
it's difficult.
It is tough, and it's not the core business, right? So what we are doing is we are trying to make the journey simpler for organizations. I am giving you a STIX compliant image. I am giving you a FIPS compliant image. I am giving you with our image, PCI DSS, your journey to compliance would be very easy. So that's exactly our vision from a compliance point of view.
That's amazing. And I think one of the things that I've started seeing when I go to the customer is they're never paying attention earlier on how the open source software has been consumed, right? So the moment we start talking to maybe CISOs or the people who are responsible for the security of an organization, they start realizing the impact that open source software brings in when they're building their custom application inside the organization, and the complete newer approach on dealing with vulnerability right from the start is something that they never thought of is possible. But the moment you talk about it, they realize, wow, this is amazing. If something can be done like that, that will reduce 70 or 80% of the work that they go through later on, right? And that's something they find it extremely exciting. The practical problem for them is they don't know how to implement that, right? And we generally realize this cybersecurity is a joint responsibility in an organization. It cannot be a responsibility of one department or one function. So for us, the way we see is getting adopted and extremely successful is when the application team, the DevSecOps team, the developers and CISOs all working together towards one goal. And that one goal is they do not have to get into this whirlpool of continuously managing vulnerabilities, which ideally could have been handled right from the beginning, right? And on that one, I think Cleanstart, we are doing an amazing job of eliminating something that can be eliminated at 80% rate.
Absolutely, and like we discussed before, right? The developer need not worry about compliance or hardening the image, etc., because that's not his job. His core functionality is different. The security team would keep a tab on vulnerabilities and seeing if it is compliant or not. And as long as it's compliant, every team wants to be an enabler. So the security team becomes an enabler. And for the business team, it goes to the business fast. So I think you are absolutely bang on when you spoke about all together and making everybody successful is where
And
we come in.
and one more thing, and you and I have been into cybersecurity for many, many years. It's been told for many times that if you really want to implement cybersecurity, you have to compromise on the performance, right? So the tighter the cybersecurity is, the better the cybersecurity is. It slows down the processes, it slows down the system performance. That's not true. The best and most successful cybersecurity companies are in the world who enhances cybersecurity posture by manifold, but simultaneously enhances the performance and the speed at which you can do your work. And that's why I believe that Cleanstart is that's what we are doing. First of all, we provide images which are super light and super fast and super compatible with your existing environment, which
Right.
developers absolutely love it. Number two, we increase the speed to the go-to market by manifold. Instead of you waiting for a few weeks, you do it immediately from the very first day. So I think we are the company who customer absolutely love it when we talk about is we are eliminating your cybersecurity problem, but we are expediting your ability to go to market by manifold. And that's the real cybersecurity companies that we are talking about.
Right. You're absolutely right. Uh, we have seen historically that anything that is added as a security layer always adds to the complexity. With Cleanstart, our was that if you are hygienic and clean, and COVID has taught us that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That if you're hygiene and clean, your attack surface becomes less. So typically, if your hygiene is not there and you have a huge attack, you might have tons of things in your image which you're not using. Why keep it, right? So I think it's keeping lightweight, keeping the attack surface low, uh, and that helps in performance, that helps in security, etc. And of course, I told you, right, it's a continuous process. From compliance, it's a continuous process. From best practices, everything is a continuous process. So it's a continuous process.
People do ask me one more thing is who are your biggest customers? And I generally say pretty much every enterprise, every progressive enterprise is our customer. However, the biggest consumer are those people who are the biggest users of container images, those who are building the application in-house. Now just think of it, who are those companies or who are those enterprises?
Everybody.
Everyone, right? That's you talk about the manufacturing companies to the hospitality industries to the healthcare industry to the large government organization to the SaaS industries. Now we're talking to pretty large governments, and government absolutely loves the idea of having a secured private gateway from where they can maintain, monitor, and govern how the open source images are getting consumed by different departments, right? And maybe some government has done great work here in North America. We see government is doing a great work, but I think is yet to be get adapted in across the world in many other countries. Banking, fintech, they're the big developers and big consumers of the container images, and they are yet going through those rudimentary DevSecOps practices wherein they have to identify all the vulnerabilities and then fix them,
Prioritize and then
prioritize, contextualize, and then deploy a plenty amount of resources and team and clean it up. And the moment we talk about this idea and we show them it's working, they absolutely love it, right? And that makes us thrilled about this industry, about the product, where we see we are creating a real big impact on how the vulnerability has been handled so far.
Right. Yeah. So DoD has done a great job from an Iron Bank perspective. So we have seen that in the United States per se. And yes, all the other governments are going towards that. So I see that becoming an essential piece in everybody's security life cycle. Supply chain life cycle is something that I do foresee as becoming implemented everywhere. Yes, and you highlighted quite a few points, which is absolutely true, right? And I mean that they have been elaborated enough. So I think yes.
Good, guys. So thank you very much. I think we spoke a lot today. We spoke about how the software supply chain is complicated. We spoke about the compliances. We spoke about how we are changing the world, how the vulnerability management has been done separately. So I hope you all guys found it useful, and we will continue running this podcast for many more sessions to come.
Yes, and yes, it's and compliance is a huge topic in itself. When we do our engineering and deep dive sessions, uh, like FIPS, how does it work? What is post-quantum cryptography algorithms, right? So all of this is coming, heading your way. So yes, we would definitely love to have more conversations on this.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks.
Yeah.